Can everyone hear me okay? Is the sound good? Grand. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to this Book Fringe event with the absolutely incredible Randa Jarrar. You idea how excited I am for this event. Rhonda's work has been an absolute kind of comfort and such wonderful company as well throughout these years. Love is the Next Country is a book that has meant so much to me and that I have reread over and over. And now with this new collection as well and your essay in it, it is so timely, so I cannot wait for this. Thank you so much. So the way that this event will go is that I'll just introduce Rhonda very briefly, and then Rhonda will give us a couple of ratings, and then we'll have time for a Q&A as well. So yeah, keep thinking of those questions throughout the event. So, Randa Jarrar is a writer, university professor, actor, filmmaker, and activist. She's the author of 3 books: the modern coming-of-age classic, A Map of Home, a collection of stories, Him, He, Muhammad Ali, and her recent memoir, Love is the Next Country. Randa lives in Los Angeles with her girlfriend and her dog. Everyone, give it up for Randa Jarrar.
Thank you all so much for being here. It's such a beautiful day, and to see you here when you could be, you know, destroying a weapons manufacturer. I mean, I don't know, having queer sex. I don't know. You could be doing so many things, and you're here. So I just want you to know I appreciate you and love you all so much. This is a time for radical love and yeah, and togetherness and community. And I hope that if you are feeling uncomfortable at any time during this, you can get up, stretch. Please don't feel the need to be polite in any way. I'm an extremely impolite, neurodivergent person. So, you know, it's just be as queer as you want, truly, and as comfortable as you can be. So, how's everyone doing today? Yeah? Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I only had 1 cup of coffee today, so this is very necessary. I know that we are living in a time that can be extremely depressing and full of grief, and I just want to, acknowledge that and also say that I am so proud of the way that humans have been able to hold on to their empathy and been able to hold on to their humanity. Time it's been terrible, and it's been terrible for a long time, but the last 2 years especially have been really awful. So I want to hold space for all of us who are grieving, who are having a terrible time and thinking about our loved ones, and even people, you know, even if we don't know people in Gaza and Sudan. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that we still feel this grief and this sadness. And I just want to, as always, now I think about the martyrs and I speak to them and want to honor them. So, and as queers, I think, and as a queer Palestinian, there's so much nonsense that is directed in my direction, our direction. You know, the pinkwashing, the denial of our humanity, the ways that we are told that, first of all, that we don't exist. So we are further erased and further, meant to deal with violence, and then told that that violence doesn't exist. It's just such a mind fuck, for lack of a better word. And so we have to find each other and we have to hold each other, because we are constantly being separated and divided, you know. We are divided amongst each other too by our, I don't know, even in our activism, sometimes we can be divided and judgmental. You know, I'm noticing a lot of judgment, like, hey, what are you doing posting a picture of your ass? Like, people are dying. It's like, I'm sorry, you queer people in Gaza don't want to see juicy ass? That's so fucked up. Like, they do. So yeah, there's just so many levels of erasure, judgment, and I think, you know, when we as a Palestinian, I think about the thawabit, you know, I think I will never collaborate. So for sure, like if people in our community are doing things that are harming our cause, you know, I really, really hope that we can communicate that with them and that they will listen. So in our movement, we can't do that. We can't afford that. We need to bring people in and try over and over and over again. Be like, okay, please, can you hear this? Do you hear this? I need you to hear this. Like, oh, you know, Janan Matari has a jewelry line with an inverted red triangle. Therefore, we're never going to talk to her again. No, that's not going to happen. Like, we can just tell her, hey, we're concerned about this, and move forward, right? Like, we can't afford to. Yeah. So let's hopefully think outside of the punitive carceral ways that the non-queer world does things. It's not how we want to do things. So I was gonna read a little bit from my first novel, just to give us a little taste. I wrote this in my early 20s. I was living in Texas post 9/11, like literally on 9/11, I was living in Texas. I was a 23-year-old queer with a 5-year-old child because I'm a slut. And at that point, when I was 18, I guess I was a cum dump, whatever. So I got pregnant and was like, I can have a baby. I can do anything. So it was me and my child at that time dealing with a lot of post 9/11 nonsense. And I remember being like, how are we gonna free Palestine? And how am I gonna like get laid? And all of this stuff when people are just asking me the stupidest, most racist questions every day. And, you know, how will I raise a child in this place and have him not hate himself and love himself and also be queer? Because I'll be damned if I raise a straight child. So it was really tough. And so I remember, like, when I was writing this book, being so young back then, such a long time ago, that I just told myself, listen, they want you to be distracted. They want you to just every day think about survival. And we come from a long history and tradition of art and art making. And we need to remember that, our power and our ancestors and the ways that writing poetry while fighting off Napoleon, like that's what literally we were doing. So I need to get back to that. And so that's how I wrote this book. It was my act of resistance and survival. So it's funny, I opened it to a chapter called This is War, but it's not the one I want to read, but that's interesting. I'll read you a very short bit. Composition number 3. So this is the character basically writing college admission essays. I don't know if you have that here, but in the US we have to write essays. I come from crazy, stubborn, mad lovin' hoes. I come from a great line of crazy hoes. My great-great-grandmother Ibtisam grew up in a village and fought off rapists from the age of 9. She narrowly escaped getting circumcised by chaining her left ankle to a rail and telling my great-great-great-grandmother that she would not perform any of her required duties on the land unless she got to keep her clitoris, the first known clit labor strike in history. And so when all the girls went down to the Nile and threw their clits in it, as she was spared the sight of her own, floating on the river's surface like the button of a fisherman's vest that had been scrubbed too hard and come loose. Her great-great-great-great-grandmother had been returning from a morning washing her two sons' clothes at that very river when Napoleon's army entered Egypt, and one of his soldiers thought she was fly. Barely 18 years old, she gave birth to her first daughter, a result of the rape, who carried blue eyes in her milky face, and 4 legitimate children followed. The blue-eyed one grew up to be a baby machine, ancestor to 19.2% of the blue-eyed citizens of current-day Egypt. The one who got to keep her clitoris was not blue-eyed, so when she gave birth to a blue-eyed girl, everyone wailed that she must have slept around with the English and should have gotten her clit cut off to begin with. But her father defended her, reminding everyone of his blue-eyed ancestor, and everyone relented the way all small villages quickly make celebrities and abandon them. Ibtisam's daughter gave birth to many sons, and the eldest married a painfully shy and passive woman who gave birth to a painfully shy and blue-eyed son, who married a shamelessly loud and aggressive Greek woman who gave birth to my eyed mama. Mama married Baba, whose mama's mama had deserted his mama, practically selling her off to work for a family that was distantly related to Baba's mama's dead Baba. That deserting mama came from a bull of a mama who had a veranda of a chest, which she got from her mama, whose nickname was Sakhra, because her bosom was so immense, her father made her lie on her back an hour each day beneath the weight of a giant Nablus rock that he had hoped would crush flat the giant tits. It did not. Sakhra's daughter's daughter gave birth to 6 daughters, 3 of whom had come with brothers in the womb, twins. The boys died within hours of their birth so quickly that nobody sent for certificates of their births or their deaths, so that they were like light dreams that evaporate at the moment of awakening. The daughters grew up to be plump and big-titted by the age of 10, even the ones who were left without covers in Nablus winters and the ones who were deliberately unfed for hours, while the deserted daughter chanted and burned frankincense and prayed for the boys' lives in vain. The dead boys' sisters became famous because of their relentless will to live, and inspired a hikaye, a folktale that the deserter's daughter had aborted the 5th one in the 5th month and threw her in the cistern, but the baby had lived anyway, climbing out of the water hole a few years later and demanding square nabulsi cheese and bread. The 5th daughter always laughed at the story with hoots and chuckles that were almost as big as her breasts. The 7th pregnancy was the most unwanted. The deserter's daughter had had enough of her belly expanding and her back buckling. So when she gave birth to a boy, she instantly sent for his birth certificate, and all the 6 sisters gathered around him, and he went from ample bosom to ampler bosom, and he lived. And 25 years later, he married my flat-chested mother, who gave birth to me, a dirty, green-eyed, big-titted, mad, stubborn, crazy, loving hoe. So that is how, y'all. That is from the mind of my 23-year-old self, my little brain. So I can read you a little bit from my memoir. So I'll read a little bit from this essay called Biblioclast, which means burner of books. My father, he wanted me to be a writer, but when I became one, he didn't like what I wrote. I didn't speak to him for almost 7 years after I published my first novel, which he hated and called pornography. It features lots of sex and masturbation, as well as an unsavory portrait of a narcissistic and selfish father. He insisted it was the sex scenes that offended him and not the depiction of the father character, who had been very, very loosely based on him. My father said he would only talk to me again if I publicly burned every single copy of my book. I love imagining myself doing this, my transformation from rejected pornographer to redeemed daughter and biblioclast. Most texts are burned because they are deemed by one religious group or another as being heretical. Torah scrolls were burned by ancient Romans, the Talmud was burned in medieval France, the Quran was burned in the United States. In 2010, a pastor named Terry Jones threatened to burn 200 Qurans on the 9th anniversary of 9/11. He didn't do it, but dozens of Qurans were set on fire by other people that day. All men. Biblioclasts are overwhelmingly male. My novel was a heretical text, too. In our household, my father was God, and his word was truth, and anyone who talked back to him or even just interrupted him during breakfast was a heretic whose book needed to be burned. I started indulging in this fantasy of myself as a biblioclast. Here's what I imagine. I round up all the copies of the book in my house. I have 2 paperbacks in my office, 6 hardcovers in an old chest, and 2 copies on a shelf in the dining room. If it is summer, in my imagination, I burn them in my backyard in the barbecue pit. If it is winter, I burn them in a fireplace. Next, I begin to contact readers who might have copies. I ask them to mail all the copies to a post office in the town which I began writing the novel when I lived in a trailer for $300 a month, including all utilities. The readers, baffled, comply because I explicitly state to them how important it is for my father that I do this. Friends who have heard my complaints about my father, that he was so strict I wasn't allowed to socialize, that he struck me, that he often made me feel as if my large body was unworthy of love, don't understand why I would burn all my books for him. I tell them that my father did his best to love me, that he took me to a trip to New York City when I was 13, that he used to sing with me and laugh at my jokes. I tell my friends that now, as I near the age of 40 and work in a place where I am a minority, my empathy for my father has deepened, that I can finally imagine what it must have been like for him, a Palestinian, to immigrate to the US and work at a job where he was the only Arab, perhaps the only person of color. I tell them that I miss my father, and it becomes a bit easier for them to understand. The Quran was orally passed on in the years after the Prophet Muhammad's death, and it was not written down until 2 decades later, between 650 and 656. In Arabic, the slightest mispronunciation can change the meaning of a word entirely. When my father was a boy and heard the muezzin's call to prayer, Hayya ala salah, he thought the word hayya, which means come, was the same as the word hayya, which means snake, and so he imagined a snake on a prayer rug, which confused and freaked him out greatly. After the Quran was fully transcribed, the Khalif ordered that all manuscripts containing any verses or excerpts from the Quran be burned, so that there would be only one official version. I always wondered if versions learned by heart, the ones that differed from the official Quran, could be destroyed. How do you erase memory? And then there's a section where I have a biblioclass fantasy where I just do a bunch of burning of my book. In 2003, after the US invasion of Iraq, fires ravaged the Iraqi National Library and Archive, the Library of Religious Endowments, the Library of the University of Baghdad's College of Fine Arts, and one called House of Wisdom. The buildings were bombed or set aflame by looters. Iraq had lost its libraries in many wars before. In the 13th century, all of Iraq's libraries were burned down, including the original House of Wisdom. It was said that the water of the Tigris River ran indigo with the ink of books that had been hurled into it. I would love to, at some point, write an update to this because this is before the current iteration of the genocide against Palestinians, and there's been so many archives in Gaza that have been burned and destroyed. There's photos of it. In 1948, Israeli soldiers ransacked Palestinian homes and looted family libraries. 60,000 books and manuscripts were stolen. The books that remained are now housed in the National Library of, quote, Israel, end quote. The other thousands of books were burned or recycled. My father was burned, No, born in 1950, and he grew up in the West Bank. Like all Palestinians, his biggest crime was his birth, and the sentence of this crime is disappearance. The main problem with Palestinians is that we continue to exist. In 2007, the Ministry of Education in Gaza threatened to burn a collection of Palestinian folklore because it was pornographic, literally. But Palestinians protested this decision, saying the folk tales were sometimes crude, but they were also a cultural treasure. They'd been transmitted orally for centuries before being written down. They needed to be preserved. The ministry swiftly revoked the decision to set the books aflame. Recently, I met an elderly artist whose daughter didn't talk to him for years, queer. We sat together by a natural pool, and he told me that he thinks my father wants me to respect him. It began to rain. He told me that sometimes we have to apologize to the people who wronged us. Another man told me that having a father is a father. His own dad died 6 years before. Then a good friend of mine lost her father, and that is when I decided to contact my father, for real, to see if he wants me still to burn my books. He doesn't. I fly out to New York to see him, and when we meet, I apologize. I tell him I'm sorry that I hurt him. We hug. 7 years have passed. We are both on our best behavior. He isn't critical of me. However, he doesn't apologize in return. I ask if we can agree not to talk about the hurtful things we've said and done in the past. He says, yes, let's not mention the times you've shamed and disappointed me. He laughs, and I try to laugh too. That afternoon, we go for a walk and stop at the shop that carries his favorite Arabic newspaper. He buys it, and I hug him again while he holds the paper that is written in his mother tongue. My father is now a man with Parkinson's, his body slightly curled down, his socks pulled up too high, his mustache completely white. Seeing him this changed, this transformed, stings, and I finally understand that I need to let go of my old image of my father, the man who is a tyrant, bully, and biblioclast, because that man no longer exists. Biblioclast. And I'll just read for a couple more minutes from this book that will be coming out soon, I hope. This Queer Arab Family. I reached out, and I've always felt connected to other Palestinians and other queers and other queer Palestinians, and as family. That has been my chosen family, but also as a mother, like a proper mother of a child who is now an adult. I started thinking about ways that I've also been parenting my kid, and I've actually written a funny guide on how to raise a kid by yourself and do it as like a queerdo, and so I'm still working on that, but hopefully we'll be done by next year. So I'll read a little from this. Learning from other mothers at a time of genocide. You are the mother of an adult Palestinian son. You raised him alone for years, and just as he is about to graduate from college, a genocide unfolds. You are angry at the Zionist entity and its unapologetic slaughter. The birds are angry, by the way. Yes, its unapologetic slaughter of teachers, poets, garbage men, cooks, soccer players, musicians, playwrights, nurses, doctors, actors, students, professors, writers, babies, toddlers, children, teenagers, elderly women, elderly men, disabled people, all people of all ages. You don't sleep, but rest in spurts, monitoring the war crimes raining down on the innocent people in Gaza. In a meeting with other Palestinian writer mothers of the diaspora, one of you remarks that being away from Palestine and watching the daily horrors is akin to being chained in a room next door to a kill shed. You can see the people being killed in the space right next to you. You can bear witness and record what is happening for posterity to actually stop it. This makes you angry because you can't stop thinking of ways to stop it. You meet with other queer comrades in community spaces, leaving all your phones in fair at the door. You all wear masks to maintain anonymity and because the pandemic never ended. You plan to shut down awards shows, embassies, roads, and highways. You meet with people who, like you, are sick of seeing children, of how children should or should not be bombed. These children have names: Rana, Lena, Aya, Watin, Tariq, Salma, Muhammad, Banan, Omar, Layan, Jannat, Misk, Bisan, Ayman, Naya, Juwan. UNICEF calls the genocide a graveyard for children. These children's mothers have names too. You are all tired of the ways these children and their mothers have become rhetorical tools. Each person you scream when you march together, each person is a whole world unto themselves. Each person had dreams and wishes and a voice. Each person was targeted inside a concentration camp that they were not allowed to leave. Together with your queer comrades, you block a highway, reminding each other to be like water. You must not be captured by the state. You must flow with each other away from surveillance. You visit encampments where students refuse to allow their universities to get away. You stand alongside them while racists firebomb students' tents, setting off fireworks to burn them out of their right to protest. With your queer comrades, you attend talks where Zionists who think a ceasefire is out of the question are invited. You play the names of the people murdered by Israel and US-made bombs through a loudspeaker. Together, you scream at the racists until security carries you out of the hall by your chair, which you refuse to get out of, forcing them to drag you. You are told by the attendees that they were just there to attend a talk. They were not aiding a genocide. You remind them that people during Nazi Holocausts also went out on cool, nice evenings to attend talks. Nothing about genocide, you remind them, is normal. With your fellow disabled comrades, you visit weapons manufacturers around the Los Angeles area, struck by how banal the locations are. Right next to a Taco Bell, a school, or a Home Depot garden center. Most of these buildings are secured by one person, usually a man, an ugly one by the way, whose job it is to protect the workers inside who make parts that go into bombs and missiles that tear apart children named Salma, Muhammad, and Banan. The actionists you attend meetings tell you and each other that though evading arrest is important, it is not as important as dismantling these facilities. They remind you that spending a few months in prison for wrecking and possibly shutting down a weapons facility is a small price to pay for living in the core of empire and enjoying that empire's spoils, while children like Jannat and Hind and Malek are killed in their sleep. Many people in Gaza call you at all hours. When you video call them, you see their tents and the places where they sleep. They ask you to send money, explaining the ways the blockade has made the price of a tomato unaffordable. Mothers need diabetes medicine, menstrual pads, or the simple comfort of a blanket. One day at a protest, you meet a fellow Palestinian femme. She rides a motorcycle alongside the crowd, waving a Palestinian flag. Like super hot. Together, you come up with an idea to ask tattoo artists to hold a day for Palestine where they each draw up a flash sheet of images to tattoo, pledge to give 100% of the money they make to a mutual aid fund. Hundreds of tattoo artists rise to the task, each of them once the child of a mother. In tattoo shops all over the world, people get inked with images of kafiyas and tatriz. You get a tattoo too, and while there, see that a young queer Latina has just gotten a fresh tattoo of the quote, "soul of my soul," in Arabic and English. You think of Khalid Nabhan, the grandpa who became a social media personality, while holding his slain granddaughter, Reem, and you weep. One afternoon, you attend a video call with a bunch of comrades who are in Cairo, aiding recent refugees from Gaza. You discover that there is a way out for many people who want to leave. A private company in Egypt called Yahala works with the Egyptian military to bring Palestinians in Gaza across the border and into Egypt, away from genocide. The company is disgusting, charging 5,000 US dollars for each adult and 2,500 for each child it helps save. You have complicated feelings about this. Shouldn't organizations be helping people for free? And shouldn't indigenous people be able to live on their land in peace? But who are you to say they must stay there while you are living in comfort in Los Angeles? The organizers helping to coordinate many of the families and their escape to Egypt are queer. You experience a deep sense of pride when you think how many of queer folks are helping Palestinians in Gaza. Queer communities excel at organizing and collective care because we've had to. You understand that the body is a border, and queer people understand this borderland existence. You navigate the spaces between acceptance and rejection daily, building community in the cracks of a system not designed for you. And there's something powerful about people who have been told they don't belong, creating belonging for each other. You practice care as a revolution. When you've been told your existence is wrong, simply creating space and sharing vulnerability, you go beyond survival and into transformation, the kind of deep, sacred love that crosses every border designed to contain it. During the video call, these new comrades appeal to everyone present to come to Egypt and help settle these families. There are mothers who need help with education, hospital stays, transportation, medical appointments, finding apartments and furniture. They need new clothes, they need new shoes, diapers, baby cloths. They also need people to fundraise and bring cash to help bring others out of Gaza. Deciding to go to Egypt is the easiest decision you make. So I go to Egypt, I strap $23,000 in cash into my bra, my underwear, so that I don't have to declare it because the Egyptian government is garbage. And at some point between visiting people, I go visit like really old friends of mine that I've known since I was a kid. The next day, you visit your old teenagehood best friends, twins you used to have a huge crush on. They are now mothers, and you finally get to meet their kids. Their fathers are nowhere to be seen, and the household is bustling with the sound of cooking and video games. You tell your old BFFs that you are in love with your girlfriend, and one of them says she's happy for you, while the other one is shocked that you have a girlfriend. You're gay, she says. Queer, you correct her, and she makes a face. Why do Americans have to have a word for everything, she says. You laugh and remind her that there are at least 10 times as many words in Arabic as there are in English. Her sister is embarrassed and tells her to stop being ignorant. You tell them both you're not gay, as in only interested in women who identify as women, but queer, as in you identify as a pangender femme who is attracted to all genders. You see that the same twin is now very, very confused. You tell her you'll send her a book on gender and sexuality. Habibti, do you still read? You ask, knowing it sounds like a cunty question. You'll need to read up on it, you tell her, to support your kids when they start having questions about these things. Yes, the other twin says. Send it to both of us, please. You say you will. Pleased with yourself, you change the subject. And then my last section I'll read to you is I go to Mus'ab Abu Toha's house when he's there briefly, and his daughter is obsessed with me. Okay. His wife says that the first and most important thing to do when Palestine is free is to set up schools for the children. You agree with her and listen as she passionately describes the curriculum she would want to implement. His daughter makes you bracelet after bracelet. When you have dinner with them all, his youngest tells Ghazan rhyming jokes, and the daughter keeps wanting your attention. When the writer tries to tell a story, she tells him boldly to shut up. Ikhlas Baba! He is amused. You tell her she's very lucky that she can talk to her father that way. Why my hair is shaved on the side. I tell her because I want it that way. She says, you say your father was once a poet, but he never allowed you to tell him what to do, and he would have never allowed you to say ikhlas ya baba. She says, yes, but now you have the hair you want to have. Stop there.
Thank you so much, Randa. That was so incredibly powerful, and just also a really important reminder of the kind of work that we can do here just from where we stand. I think the saying is always kind of like dig where you stand, and that's such an important thing to remember. And especially thinking about your work and the fact that a lot of what you write about is about kind of like preserving an archive of our resistance, of our lives, of our desires, of our dreams, all of that, especially kind of at a time when our witnesses in Gaza who are documenting the genocide are being killed en masse. Like 270 journalists so far have been killed, if not more. And I just want to read a little bit from Anas Sharif's will that I think really speaks to what you've been saying as well. So Anas Sharif is one of the martyr journalists. He wrote, I advise you not to be silenced by restrictions, nor to be paralyzed by borders. Be bridges toward the liberation of the country and its people, so that the sun of dignity and freedom may shine upon our usurped homeland. And that's something that you really try to do with your activism and your work as well. Like both go hand in hand. It's not that just kind of like one thing suffices over another. And I just wanted to talk about kind of like, yeah, just the idea of your work as a body of archive and kind of like as an extension kind of like of yourself that you are, yeah, sending kind of like towards others. If you can speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, I think of my work as just one part of such a big tapestry of Palestinian art and archives. And I think maybe if I was a cis man, I would like just be constantly like talking about how important my work was. But I think because I'm not, it really means a lot to me when I hear other people, especially people like you, people who I respect, who are family, see that's what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I think it's something all of us can do. We are all, I mean, we live in a world that minimizes so much of our labor or dismisses it, but we're all creating an archive or trying to, and yeah, we have the power to make sure that this is all being recorded, that this is all being documented, that we are not looking away, that we are not despairing, feeling helpless. So, yeah, someone today asked me, actually, they said, well, you know, everyone is telling, you know, everyone in Gaza is, not everyone, but they were specifically one person that they'd been seeing say, you're not doing anything, you're silent, you're not doing anything. And she was like, I'm trying, I'm doing things, I'm trying to do the best. And I was like, well, then they're not talking to you. You know, someone going through a genocide is not, they're not here to make you feel comfortable. They're, you know, you're gonna feel discomfort, you're gonna feel sadness, you're gonna feel anger, and that's a big part of this. And undergoing psychological warfare, all of us. So we might not be directly impacted, but we are all impacted in this right now. And I think that it's important for us to also be kind in some ways to each other. The way a person is behaving towards you right now, whether they're angry at you, judging you, or going out and drinking and posting pictures of themselves, probably still their way of dealing with the psychological horror of witnessing genocide. So, yeah. But it is important also to remember that when we talk about radical joy, it's Palestinians there that are experiencing radical joy, right? Yeah, not not us ignoring genocide and doing whatever we want and being like, I am practicing joy and it's radical. Yeah, but I didn't answer your question because, yeah, the Jarrar archives continue.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and especially kind of like speaks to what you were saying in the introduction as well about that. Yeah, again, there is a lot that we can do, and I think there's also kind of like such a thing where people feel very squeamish about kind of like saying that they feel helpless to others because I mean, if you look around and if you ask people around you, there are people who are actually kind of like doing really important organizing work. There are people who are protesting in front of arms factories. There are people who are taking direct action. And there are people kind of like who are employing all of these tactics to actually kind of like try to fight towards Palestinian liberation. It takes all of us to do this. But it does take us kind of like being comfortable with actually kind of like turning to the person next to us and just being like, I don't know what to do, and because there will be someone kind of like in that link who will have an in and will be able to kind of like you will be able to help each other out and move forward together. But I'm also kind of like conscious that we started a little bit late. If anybody, by the way, just needs to head off, that is totally fine. But I also just want to turn the mic over to the audience. I have other questions, of course, that I would love to ask Randa. But if anyone has a question, just please throw a hand up and I'll repeat it into the mic. Yeah, great. Yeah. Just Graham was asking about kind of like, sorry, in the Palestinian organizing movement and Prayers for Palestine. So the question is about just kind of like queer solidarity with Palestinians, which of course you talk about, and I love the fact that you read parts of that as well. So yeah, and just the reactions and kind of like the interconnectedness of those struggles.
Yeah, it's been interesting to, but for me, it's like it's been really nice to have people in Gaza come out to me. So seeing that I'm queer and they're like, oh my God, I'm trans. Like, I'm fucked over here. Like, I'm trans. I don't have access to anything. There's a trans woman, another trans woman who reached out and was like, I'm being sexually assaulted. I don't know what to do. So stuff that like isn't as openly spoken about. But just having people come out and feel like there's someone they can talk to, because it can be so terrible to deal with the pinkwashing and the bullshit and you know all of that. It's ridiculous. But so far so good. I mean, I'm super out to like everyone in my family, but that's not going to be the situation for everyone. Not everyone has to be out. Not everyone wants to be, and being out is such a sort of like Western concept too. But yeah, I felt a lot of love and a lot of curiosity, you know. So people will be like, "Oh, you're a girlfriend," you know. Like sometimes I'll just be like, "Huh?" But mostly just, yeah, very, very kind, sweet. Yeah.
Any other questions in the audience? Actually, I do have another question that, sorry, did someone raise their hand? Oh, yes, sorry, yeah. I'm so glad you asked about The Last Palestinian Alive. It was incredible as well. But yeah, so the question was about the role of speculative fiction and kind of like the importance of it in this time, especially as sometimes kind of like fiction can feel like a bit of an indulgence, especially in a time of genocide. So just, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like I don't think of it as an indulgence. I think of it as like the only way I can move forward. Like if I can't radically reimagine or imagine a future that is so different than now, I can't imagine a way forward. So like, and then turning to Palestinian folk tales and oral folk tales, I see that this is a really long tradition. This is like 100 years old tradition of like, oh, we always have had these like wild ideas about like, you know, having alliances with jinn, having alliances with magical beings, having, because we just didn't know how to continue. We just didn't, we were like, well, these colonizers are here, they're trying to take over, so maybe this really cool bird can lay an egg that then will become a tank that will, you know, whatever it is. So I think I understand, I guess I can understand that it feels like an indulgence to just imagine when we need to like physically organize, but I think it is another sort of tactic, radical imagination, and being like, well, what's going to happen when Palestine is free? What's going to happen when all billionaires are abolished? What's going to happen when we all take care of each other and live in mutual community, love, and what's going to happen when, you know, yeah, when all of that comes to pass? And even like, okay, well, what's going to happen if things go terrible? So that's where that idea for my show came. Was I don't know who else saw my show, but it's about a Palestinian woman who wakes up. She's been kind of conserved by her community with all of their inventions, but they do it so well that she overshoots and like wakes up and everyone's dead. Everyone in Gaza is dead, but then she realizes actually everyone is dead. Everyone in the world is dead, which is how I feel. I feel that right now we're all dead, because if we're living, witnessing a genocide, that means we've all died. And so then I was like, well, what's that world like? If everyone's dead, who is she talking to? Like, what is... And then I was like, well, probably the only thing left is the divine and the witness of the divine. And I wanted to write it as fiction, but then a friend of mine, this is great to talk about, like in a queer bookstore with all of us, their name is Victor I. Cazares. They are an amazing playwright, and at the beginning of the genocide, they're indigenous. They're from a border town in Texas and Mexico. And the New York Theater Workshop, which is their artistic home, refused to call for a ceasefire, just the basics. And so they said, well, you know what? I'm actually going to stop taking my HIV medicine until you call for a ceasefire, thinking in 3 days they're going to call for a ceasefire. But a week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, 4 weeks went by, and Victor became detectable again for the first time in their life since they started taking their meds. And so it became clear that the New York Theater Workshop was okay with one of their own playwrights dying rather than them just calling for a ceasefire. So they were just absolutely shocked at this and finally broke their strike. They were like, you know what? No, I'm not dying for the New York Theater Workshop. I'm going to do what I can for Palestinians. And so when I was telling them about this, and when I started thinking more about this idea that I had, they kind of showed me that this could be theatrical. And then recently Victor reminded me that theater is originally, and as its foremost function, is to revive the dead. That's actually what theater's purpose is. So being here during Fringe, like, yeah, it could seem like, oh, what is this? It's so indulgent, it's so silly, but it's actually like, first and foremost, a ritual to revive the dead. And I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to do something that is ritual, that honors our martyrs, that makes people wonder, like, okay, now that we're all dead in a way, like, how do we move forward? So yeah, the speculative to me feels radical and important, and imagining what our world is going to be like when we're free is important.
Thank you so much, Randa, and thank you for all your wonderful questions. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but Randa is going to be hanging around for a little bit, if that's okay, and just signing books. You can buy Randa's books over there, and you absolutely should. They are absolutely incredible. But you don't have to. And also, please do remember that in Lighthouse we also do have the Pay It Forward wall, and that's for everyone to access. If anyone needs help buying a book, you can just tell us, no questions asked. And this Queer Arab Family is going to be out end of September. We're going to have some book plates as well that Randa will, so people can have like a dedicated book once it does come out in paperback. And if you all join me in saying thank you to Randa so much for this.